break down intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is just periods without eating. And like so many other fad diets, they're just not sustainable for one reason or another. There's some diets that are so limiting that it doesn't work with your life, or you feel like it's affecting other people around you. Or maybe it's I don't know, is there food that I can eat there? Does that sound familiar? Intermittent fasting is the answer because it requires very little effort to get great results. And once you're armed with the information on how your body chooses its fuel source for energy, you're immediately in the driver's seat and in control of your weight, your health, and your life. In the simplest explanation of intermittent fasting is just really skip breakfast. That'll do it. But you need to know how insulin works in your body. So insulin's a hormone that gets released whenever you eat sugar. And the problem with insulin in your body is that it doesn't just go away once the sugar's burned off. It sticks around for 12 hours. And what they didn't tell you, if you know anything about insulin, is they always said insulin is the key that unlocks the cells so that your cells can get energy and get that sugar in. And in my Western medicine training, that was all I learned, which was ironic because I was also a diabetic educator. And so this whole time I was thinking about, oh, this is how insulin works. But what I didn't know, and I wasn't even aware of, was that insulin is what actually chooses your fuel source. So when you have insulin present in your body, you cannot burn fat. So when you eat sugar, now there's a 12-hour window that your body's not able to burn fat, no matter what you do. And if you burn through all your sugar, then you're just going to start breaking down proteins, and that breaks down your muscle, and you still retain your fat. So it's not effective that way. And so I started thinking about this a few years back when these big buzzwords were coming up about insulin control and how insulin was the key to losing weight and all these other things that I thought, is this just another diet fad and a way to promote another diet? And then intermittent fasting was becoming very popular. So I really wanted to dive into it. So I looked at 3 different diets that I knew had an effect on controlling your insulin. And I wanted to see how they worked and what the differences were. So I chose the keto diet, the macros diet, and intermittent fasting. And when you look at those, it's easy to kind of say, yeah, they all are limiting in some way. And so that's easy to find similarities there. And so when you're limiting, you're obviously eating less calories. And so the old way of thinking of that we all grew up with was create a calorie deficit. You can create a calorie deficit by eating less. You can create a calorie deficit by working out more. But either way, creating a calorie deficit was how you were going to lose weight. But now we're finding out that insulin is truly the key. When you eat carbohydrates, breads, cereals, pasta, it processes into sugar in your body, and that becomes your fuel source. And while that insulin's present, now it's 12 hours and that clock starts. So it doesn't really matter what you do, you're not going to be able to burn fat for the next 12 hours. And why this is important is because when you have insulin present, it always chooses glucose as your first energy source. But you could burn through all your glucose reserves and your glycogen reserves stored in your muscles and your liver. You run out of food, you're working out hard, something's going on, or you're just not eating, and then your body goes right into breaking down proteins, which is a little bit different because we're all trying to lose weight, not by breaking down muscle, but by breaking down fat. So when I started examining these diets with keto, it's very interesting because you're literally just limiting carbohydrates. So you're always in fat burning mode. And that works great. And it's a super fantastic diet for losing weight. However, you're also losing pretty much all the joy in life of all the carbohydrates that we love to eat that make us feel great. And so it's not really sustainable. So as soon as you stop doing the keto diet, all the weight comes back. So it's not a sustainable lifestyle change in that sense. Then you look at the macros diet. And the macros diet is also very successful because it controls your insulin. It does limit you on some things, but you could eat whatever you wanted. You just have to plan it out. It requires a ton of meal prep, a scale. You have to understand the quantities of grams and carbs and proteins and fats. It's just really not something that's conducive to a normal lifestyle because it requires so much work, so much meal prep, and so much planning. But like keto, you can get great results, but it's just not sustainable. And so when you talk about having a diet, you want it to be something sustainable that's not just, I'm getting results and then I'm going right back to my old ways. And that's why when I started looking into intermittent fasting, I went, wow, this is something that you could just incorporate right into your life. And so when I got around to it, I said, I'm not just going to do the intermittent fasting. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. But one of the ways that I picked is called the 16-8 method, which is literally 16 hours of fasting and an 8-hour window that you can eat. And during that 8-hour window, you can eat whatever you want. And so for me, I chose 12 noon to 8 p.m. It doesn't matter what 8 hours you really pick, but it has to fit into your life. And so I went, okay, lunchtime to dinner time, that's when I eat, and I'm going to skip breakfast. But I also wanted to be mindful of how your body chooses that fuel source and what your fat burning mode is. And so when I went about that, I said, okay, when it's time to eat at noon after skipping breakfast, I'm not just going to crack open a Dr. Pepper and have a box of cereal and snack on that. I'm going to eat nutrient-dense foods, but mostly protein and fat. So I would start off with high nutrition, but like protein and fat, so I wouldn't kick myself out of fat burning mode necessarily right away. And I would kind of wait a little bit further in, but I wouldn't be hungry because I was eating before I started eating carbs. And that was a way to like kind of supercharge it and biohack even intermittent fasting. And so when I did it, I broke it up into 2 30-day cycles, and I wanted to share with you what that came out to be. So the first 30 days, like I said, was mindful of eating at certain times, and at 8 o'clock, I didn't eat. And I can tell you the first 2 days was really difficult for me because I grew up my entire life, even into adulthood, I wake up starving and I eat. And I eat within 30 minutes of waking up. So the first 2 days, I was hungry. And so that was something to get over. And after 2 days, I was surprised that those cravings went away, the hunger cravings. So it was very sustainable after the first 2 days. And at the end of that cycle, I kind of looked back and was calculating what I was eating and thinking about what the calories were, because during it, I wasn't paying too much attention to the calorie count, just kind of the types of foods I was eating at certain times. And I realized I was eating about 2,500 calories a day. Some days a little more, some days a little less, but that's kind of where it averaged out. And I was almost shocked that I didn't lose a bunch of weight, because I knew I used to eat much more than that prior to starting the fasting. I only lost like 2 to 4 pounds, just not really significant on the weight loss, but the transformation in my body was really astounding. I lost a ton of belly fat, completely reshaped my physique in 30 days. It was really dramatic to see what 30 days could do. So now the second 30-day cycle, I said, well, if intermittent fasting is so great because it controls insulin, then calories shouldn't matter. And so I really went for it. And I kind of tried the whole like supersize me philosophy. And so I still was mindful of like when my eating period started at noon, I would eat not sugar. I would eat proteins. I would eat fats and things that were not carbohydrate based. But then in the afternoon, every single day, I went to Dairy Queen. That was the fast food place that was close to me at the time. And every single day I had a double cheeseburger, I had French fries, I had a large Dr. Pepper, and of course, topped it off with an Oreo Blizzard every day. And I started calculating out how I was eating and how many calories I was taking in. And it was easily 4,000 to 5,500 calories a day. And it was a tremendous increase over what I had just experienced. And at the end of that 30 days, I looked back and went, I only gained back about a pound or two. And if you look at the amount of calories, even 1,500 calories a day added on for 30 days, I should have gained at least 13 pounds by the whole calorie counting, creating a deficit. That's that sort of old, antiquated way of thinking about how you lose weight. But I didn't. And the other thing that was really astonishing is not only the fact that I didn't gain a ton of weight back, was that I didn't lose my physique. I kept the definition in my ab muscles, which, I was really astonished that that could even happen. But I felt terrible. So let's not like mix things up here. I felt horrible. I felt lethargic. I felt just like trash. I mean, when you eat crappy foods and you eat those high saturated fats, salty, fatty, with, not a lot of nutrient dense things in it, you feel terrible. And so that was really the results. But I think we totally proved by looking at those 3 diets and how I did the 2 30-day cycles of intermittent fasting that it is in fact your insulin. And so now we want to talk about how you supercharge that intermittent fasting from just the typical 16 and 8. Well, there's some other things you can do with intermittent fasting also. Some people like to say, well, my intermittent fasting is 1 or 2 days a week, I'm going to do a 24-hour fast. That will also work. If you want to do where every other day I eat normal and then the next day I eat 500 calories in a small window of time, that can work. Some people do called a 20-4. Some people do an 18-6. Same thing. It's 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating. Whatever works for you and fits in that is something sustainable is what you should be considering as a lifestyle change. There's also several other benefits to intermittent fasting other than just losing weight and having something that integrates easily into your lifestyle. And the first one is it stabilizes your blood sugar. And so stabilizing your blood sugar is great because now it's reducing your resistance to insulin. So then when you do eat sugar, it takes a lot less insulin to do the job that it did before, which means you will store a lot less fat when you take in excess calories. The next thing is it resets your taste buds and how you think about food. I never used to like fruits before, like sweet fruits, berries, things like that. After I did 60 days of intermittent fasting, all of a sudden I just loved berries, and soda didn't taste nearly as good. It tasted too sweet. It tasted processed. It didn't taste good. So that was kind of an interesting reset of my taste buds. It also reduced the dependency on glucose. Truly, our bodies don't need any glucose. We don't need carbohydrates at all to function optimally. We just don't. Our bodies are not made that way, but that is what's pushed on us in our American lifestyles and diets. But we don't need sugar at all. So you really can eliminate that need for it, and then your mind's not craving it so much. It also will balance your hormones, and there's a couple specific hormones. One of them is the hunger hormone that makes you feel hungry all the time, and the other one's a hormone that makes you feel satiated or full. So when you feel full, you're not overeating. So those are things that come into balance when you do intermittent fasting. And the last one that's super important is it improves your gut health. When you give your body a chance to reset, to heal itself, and going that 16, 18, or even sometimes 24 hours without food, your gut health will improve tremendously. And as we're finding out now, kind of like how we're finding out about insulin and weight loss, your gut health is truly the key to how your body works. So now that we know that intermittent fasting is super worthwhile, I'm going to give you 5 tips to really supercharge intermittent fasting. Number 1 is eat a diet that's rich in protein and animal fats. And I say specifically animal fats, not your protein powders and things, but animal fats. Number 2 is reducing your carbohydrates to the middle of your eating window. So if you're 12 to 8, 4 o'clock is a great time to consume all of your carbohydrates. Number 3, walk for 15 to 20 minutes after you eat, because that will bring down your insulin levels, especially after you eat carbohydrates. Number 4, consider adding in a 24-hour fast every week or 2. That'll help your gut reset. That'll help everything reset again. And it's not that hard to do because you won't be as hungry now that you're intermittent fasting. And number 5 is add weight training into your normal routine. Do it at least a couple days a week. If you do those 5 things, you will absolutely supercharge the results of your intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting will easily become a new way of living instead of just a diet. It's a lifestyle, and it's easy to do. And for me, there's still days that I wake up starving, like how I used to wake up, and that's okay. And every now and then, I'll eat a couple eggs, no carbs, just some protein first thing in the morning if that's how I feel. And other days I'll say, well, it's just going to be okay, and I'll be hungry until lunch. It just depends how you want to manage it, but it doesn't have to be all-consuming. It's just a way of living, and it works fantastic. And I know that there are people out there that'll be skeptical and say, how can eating a diet rich in fat and animal proteins really be good for your health, because we know that there's cholesterol in there and it's going to raise my cholesterol. And that skepticism is exactly why you should watch my next video. That is why high-fat foods don't make you fat. If you like this content, give me a like and also share it with a friend so you can both start getting the benefits of intermittent fasting. And then subscribe to my channel so you get the latest secret biohacks to level up your health. See you in the next video. When you eat carbohydrates, it processes into the sugars that your body needs in your body. Body needs in your body.